For today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this really simple abaya look. For this video, we will be using flat pattern pieces. So you're going to need a sleeve, a front bodice, and a back bodice. I can put a couple links to some basic patterns that you can use for this. I am working on developing my own, but for right now, just use like a commercial pattern that has these pieces. Okay, so first we're going to take the front bodice piece, and we're going to go ahead and add seam allowance, and I recommend a 1/2 inch seam allowance around the edge. And I am working with half scale patterns here because it's easier for demonstration purposes. So these are just very small patterns. So I've added the seam allowance here, and we're only going to be tracing these outside seams and not the bottom. So that's why I didn't add seam allowance there. Now we're just going to go ahead and add seam allowance also to the back piece as well. We are not going to be using this dart, so I'm going to show you how to remove it if your pattern has this dart. First, you're going to want to measure the opening, the dart opening. So on this pattern, on this half scale pattern, it's about 3/8 of an inch. So we're going to measure over 3/8 from the end of the shoulder point, and then you're just going to mark it there. And then I'm going to use a curved ruler to just blend that into the rest of the armhole. And that's what the new armhole is going to look like, and we don't need this part anymore. And then I'm going to make a new shoulder slope line from this new point that we've created all the way to here. And yeah, that's what the new pattern's going to look like. And then I'll just finish adding up the seam allowance. So now we have both our bodice front and our bodice back pieces. I've retraced the back piece just so it doesn't have these extra lines and it's not going to be distracting. So I cut the two pieces out, and now we're going to lay them onto the fabric. So this is the front bodice piece, and we're going to line it up with the folded edge of the fabric. So this is the folded edge of the fabric, and this center front here is to be placed on the folded edge, which is why it doesn't have seam allowance. And then we're going to trace the pattern, and we're just going to go around this edges here. I like to use chalk to do this, tailor's chalk, and so I'm just going to go around these edges. Chalk works really nice, especially if you're working with dark fabric, because then it's really easy to see the marks that you're making on the fabric. So we've traced around those edges, and now what we're going to do is going to extend the side seam here, and you're going to extend it down to your desired, the desired length of your garment. And then you're also going to mark the bottom and do a slightly curved hem. You also want to make sure that you mind your hip measurement. So your hip measurement is probably going to be about 8 inches down from the waist, and you just want to mark that. And measure your hips and divide it by 4. And you want to make sure that this measurement here is going to be more than your hip measurement. Otherwise, the abaya is going to fit too tightly in your hips, and you don't want that because the abaya should be tight in that area. So this is where my hip measurement would go, and you can see there's a few inches of room there, and so that's going to work out perfectly. So we're going to go ahead and also trace around the this back piece and only going up to this point right here, because we want this side seam to come out just like it does in the front and to not go in. So we're also going to mark this back seam. And then to do this part, you're going to make sure you measure your hip measurement again like you did in the front, and add however many inches of space so that you make sure it's like, the same measurement. And then you just draft the side seam there the same length as the front. And then you're gonna do the hem as well. So the thing about the hem is that you want it to be curved, but you want to make sure that it is at a right angle on both corners. So here it should be a right angle. And then you're going to do the same thing here. It should be a right angle as well. So now we have our back piece done, and we're going to go ahead and work on the sleeve. So this is the sleeve pattern, and we want to make it a little bit wider because this will be a slim sleeve otherwise. I mean, if you want that, you can do that. But all you're going to do is put a straight line across the bottom, and then you're going to measure at a right angle straight lines on the side. So we're adjusting the sleeve so that it can be a bit wider like most of our essays are. And then we're just going to go ahead and add seam allowance around the edge. Again, if you want it to be a slim sleeve, you can, stay with the regular sewing pattern sleeve style. Now we have finished drafting the sleeve, and I've cut it out. And now we're going to place it on our fabric and trace it. So we're just going to trace this exactly the same as we did the first two pieces. There's not going to be anything different about this part. This next part is pretty shaky, so I'm sorry about that. But I've cut out my pieces in actual size, so not in the mini pattern size. And I have two sleeves, two back pieces, and one front. And we're going to go ahead and sew the pieces together. And we're going to start by sewing the front piece to the back piece at the shoulder seams. So here I have sewn the shoulder seams together, and this is going to be the armhole. So next I'm going to sew the sleeve into the armhole. So what I've done to the sleeve is I've sewn an E-stitch here into the cap, and you want to make sure that you've marked the notches on your patterns. The notches indicate like where to match up the pattern with other pieces. So we're going to go ahead and match that up with the armhole. So here you can see this is going to match up with that notch, and these two notches will match up with those two notches, and then the center notch will match up with the center. So I went ahead and I have sewn the sleeve on here. This is the armhole and this is the shoulder seam. And now we're going to go ahead and sew the side seam. So this is the inside of the garment, and this is the armhole, and that's the shoulder seam, and this is the side. So essentially we're going to sew from the wrist all the way through the armpit and all the way down to the bottom of the abaya. Okay, so I've opened it to make it easier to see. It's all open along this edge, so we're just going to sew one continuous seam and go all the way down. So I went ahead and sewed together both of the side seams, and this is the armholes and the side seam here. And I've also went ahead and sewed the two back pieces closed in the center back. And I've been finishing my seams with a serger because I have one, but if you don't have one, you can just use like a simple zigzag stitch, then you can avoid getting this kind of fraying in your garment. The last thing we're going to need to do is hem the sleeve, and we'll also have to hem the bottom. And I'm going to show you a really easy method for hemming sleeves, and you can also apply the same method to hemming the bottom as well. And then we're also going to have to finish the neckline, so I'm going to show you how I like to finish my necklines in a really simple way. So I'm going to show you two simple methods that you can use to hem your sleeves really easily. This one, you need a serger, and you're essentially just going to serge the edge and then turn it once and press, and then turn it a second time and press with an iron. And then the other method is essentially the same thing, and you're just going to use a straight stitch, and you're going to stitch in a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch from the edge, um, however big you want your hem. And then you're essentially just going to press it over twice with an iron, and then you're just going to stitch on the other side. So here we have finished sewing our hem for the sleeve, and as you can see, it's finished quite nicely, and on the other side you can't even see that the seam that we had to mark for our fold line. This is just a different color because I put a different color on the inside of the garment. But yeah, this is a great way to hem your sleeves, super easy, and you can apply the same method to the bottom hem as well. So for the last step, we're going to attach bias tape to the neckline. So this is just some really simple bias tape, single fold, and it measures about 1/2 inch. And you're just going to take a piece that's about the same length around your neckline. And you're going to unfold the top part of the bias tape, and you're going to line it up on the outside of the garment. You're going to line it up with this top edge, and you're going to sew right into that edge there. So as you can see, I've sewn into that corner, and this is on the outside of the garment. And now we're going to flip the bias tape up into the inside of the garment, and then you're going to sew it along that edge. Okay, so this is the inside and this is the outside. So once you finish the neckline, that is the final step in making your abaya. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope this helped you make your own abaya. Thank you.